In the kingdom of Tadu, nestled in the heart of lush green hills where the wind whispered ancient legends, stood the village of Sana. This hamlet, surrounded by yam fields and winding rivers, seemed blessed by the gods. The thatched roofs of round huts glimmered under the sun, and the laughter of children echoed through dusty alleys. The people of Sana lived in harmony, tending fertile lands, drawing water from an ancestral well adorned with sacred carvings, and gathering each evening under the great baobab to share stories. In Sana, every face was familiar, every voice known. News, whether joyful or tragic, swept through the village like a breeze. A wedding announced, a bountiful harvest, or a misfortune striking a family. But for several months, a shadow had fallen over Sana. The peace that defined the village was crumbling, replaced by an insidious fear. Young women, full of life, were found dead, their bodies abandoned in the central square, cold and pale. No signs of struggle, no clear clues, except a chilling constant, two distinct marks on their necks like snake bites. Yet no snakes were seen near the bodies, and the surrounding forests, though dense, harbored no reptiles bold enough to venture so close to homes. These deaths, occurring in the secrecy of night, sowed a quiet terror. The superstitious villagers whispered of malevolent spirits haunting Sana, or an awakened curse. The village chief, Kwajo, a sturdy man with graying hair and a deep voice, struggled to maintain order. Respected for his wisdom, he had guided Sana through droughts and conflicts with neighboring villages. But faced with these mysterious deaths, even he seemed at a loss. He summoned the finest hunters, battle-hardened men with scarred torsos, and sent them to scour the forest. "Find this snake, or whatever is killing our daughters," he commanded. Day after day, they returned empty-handed, their faces etched with frustration. The deaths continued, relentless, and fear took deeper root in their hearts. Mothers, once confident, now forbade their daughters from straying alone. Nights, once filled with songs and dances, grew silent. Women who once laughed and jested at the well now exchanged wary glances. Even in broad daylight, unease weighed on their shoulders. Sana, once a haven of joy, was becoming a place where mistrust eroded communal bonds. Rumors abounded. Some spoke of a sorcerer, a vengeful spirit punishing women for forgotten offenses. Others mentioned a supernatural beast, a serpent with malevolent intelligence. But no answers came to ease their minds. Amid this growing fear, one man seemed untouched by the anxiety paralyzing Sana: Dodzi. A blacksmith by trade, he was a central figure in the village. Tall, with muscles sculpted by years of hard labor, he had smooth, dark skin that seemed to absorb the sunlight. His eyes, bright as burning coals, suggested he knew secrets others could not fathom. If you asked the women of Sana who the most handsome man was, the answer was unanimous: Dodzi. He was more than a man. He was a presence, a living magnetism that drew eyes and quickened hearts. Dodzi was not only beautiful, he had a way of speaking, soft and deep, like the murmur of a river at dusk. His carefully chosen words brought smiles even to the saddest faces. When he walked through the village, women paused, their chores forgotten. They blushed, laughed, hoping for a glance, a word. And when Dodzi set his eyes on one, it was as if the world faded, leaving only her and him. He knew how to wield this power. He moved with nonchalant confidence, head high, his blacksmith tools casually slung over his shoulder, fully aware of the effect he had. But behind this charm lay a shadow. Dodzi seemed unaffected by the deaths shaking Sana. While villagers gathered, mourning each new victim, he stayed aloof, continuing his work as if nothing was amiss. He forged hoes, machetes, and jewelry with hypnotic precision, but his indifference puzzled some. Why didn't he share their fear? Why did his eyes still gleam with amusement, even as the village wept? The women, however, saw none of this. To them, Dodzi was an escape, a living dream amid the nightmare. At the market, when he stopped to buy yams or cloth, they crowded around him, vying for his attention. He offered a smile, a gentle word, and they melted, momentarily forgetting the fear gripping them. Dodzi knew how to play this effect. He didn't just seduce, he wove a web, slowly drawing in his prey with a predator's patience. He took his time learning their habits, desires, weaknesses, and when he decided a woman would be next, nothing could stop him. Doji's modus operandi was always the same, a ritual as precise as his hammer strikes on iron. Once he chose a woman, he approached with devilish subtlety, a compliment at the well, an offer to carry a basket, a lingering glance at the market. He earned her trust, made her laugh, made her feel unique. Then he invited her to his hut, an isolated dwelling at the village's edge, surrounded by thorny bushes and far from prying eyes. There, under the silvery moonlight filtering through the roof's gaps, he unleashed his full charm. Dodzi's hut was an odd place, both welcoming and unsettling. Forging tools hung on the walls, but so did woven amulets, rare bird feathers, and fabrics with intricate patterns. An oil lamp cast a flickering glow, throwing dancing shadows. Dodzi offered his guest palm wine, served in a carved gourd, and spoke in a low, almost hypnotic voice. He made her talk about herself, her dreams, her fears, as if drinking in every word. Then invariably he asked an odd question. "Do you know what separates a man's strength from a snake's?" The woman, often caught off guard, laughed, thinking it a jest. But before she could answer, Dodzi changed. His smile faded, replaced by a cold intensity. He emitted a hiss, soft at first, like a breath, then sharper, filling the room with a sinister melody. The woman, suddenly uneasy, felt her heart race. Then in the shadows something moved. A serpent, long and black, with scales gleaming like obsidian, emerged from Dodzi's clothes, slithering across the floor with deliberate slowness. Its eyes, two golden slits, fixed on the woman, who stood frozen, unable to scream or flee. The snake coiled around her, its cold body brushing her skin. It seemed to toy with her, prolonging the moment before striking. The bite was swift, precise, leaving two neat marks on her neck. The venom, swift and deadly, paralyzed her in moments. She collapsed, her eyes glassy as Dodzi watched, impassive. When it was over, he carried the body to the village square, leaving it before dawn for the villagers to find. Then he returned to his forge as if nothing had happened. No one suspected Dodzi. His charm was a perfect shield. The villagers, blinded by his allure and apparent generosity, he often gave tools or fixed carts for free, couldn't imagine he was the monster they sought. With each new death, they wept, prayed, and strengthened their defenses. But Dodzi continued, untouchable, his secret well-guarded. One day, a stranger arrived in Sana, disrupting the village's fragile balance. Afiwa was unlike the women of Sana. Tall, graceful, with skin that shone like polished wood under the sun, she moved with rare confidence. Her hair, braided in intricate patterns, framed a face with delicate but determined features. Her beauty was not just physical, it stemmed from an inner strength, a presence that commanded respect. Afiwa had come to visit her aunt, Mawu, a respected herbalist living at the village's edge, but her arrival didn't go unobserved. From the moment she set foot in Sana, eyes turned to her. Men admired, women envied, and children intrigued, followed her from a distance. But Afiwa seemed indifferent to the attention. She spoke little, answered politely, but kept a distance that intrigued as much as it frustrated. Unlike other women, she didn't seek to please. She helped her aunt gather herbs, went to the well with a steady stride, and joined communal tasks without engaging in gossip. Dodzi noticed her immediately. One morning at the well, as she drew water, he approached, his usual smile in place. "A new star in Sana," he said, his voice smooth. The women around giggled, but Afiwa didn't flinch. She met his gaze, her dark eyes piercing his, and replied calmly, "I'm just passing through." Then she took her pot and walked away, leaving Dodzi unsettled. For the first time, a woman resisted him. This indifference fueled his interest. Dodzi wasn't used to being ignored. Sana's women fell for his charm effortlessly, but Afiwa was a challenge, an enigma. He watched her from afar, noting her habits. She rose early to help her aunt, avoided crowds, and always seemed alert, as if watching for something. The more he studied her, the stronger his desire grew. She wasn't just beautiful, she was strong, independent, different, and Dodzi wanted to possess her. Dodzi began weaving his web around Afiwa, but with a caution he'd never used before. He knew she wouldn't fall for his charm as easily as others. He approached subtly, offering to carry her loads, exchanging small talk at the market, or crossing her path by chance on trails to her aunt's farm. Each time, Afiwa remained polite but distant, responding without engaging, her gaze always scrutinizing. One afternoon as she drew water, Dodzi approached, bolder. "Let me help, Afiwa. That pot is heavy," he said, his smile radiant. She studied him for a moment, as if weighing his intentions, then nodded. "If you insist," she replied, stepping back to let him take the pot. He carried it to Mawu's hut, displaying his strength with studied nonchalance. On the way, he tried to draw her out, but Afiwa answered in monosyllables, her eyes fixed on the horizon. This coolness, far from discouraging him, deepened his obsession. She's playing hard to get, he thought, but he had time. In the following days, Dodzi redoubled his efforts. He offered her a bracelet he'd forged, simple but elegant. Afiwa thanked him, but didn't wear it. He complimented her grace, her intelligence, but she didn't blush or laugh. She looked at him, impassive, as if seeing through his words. This resistance drove him mad. No woman had ever defied him so. He found himself thinking of her constantly, dreaming of her yielding, succumbing like the others. One evening, determined to break her defenses, he waited near Mau's farm. The sun was setting, bathing the fields in orange light. Afiwa appeared, a basket of yams on her head, her stride as confident as ever. Dodzi stepped forward, blocking her path. "Afiwa, you're avoiding me," he said, his voice soft but tinged with accusation. She raised an eyebrow. "I've done no such thing. I've been busy," she replied, her tone neutral. Irked by her calm, he forced a smile. "Why not walk with me? We could get to know each other." She studied him for a long moment, and for an instant he thought she'd agree, but she shook her head. "I'm not interested," she said, stepping around him. This rejection, so direct, so unexpected, wounded his pride. Dodzi had never been rebuffed like this. As she walked away, he clenched his fists, his smile fading. "You won't resist me long," he muttered. At that moment, Afiwa became more than a conquest. She became an obsession, a challenge he had to overcome at all costs. What Dodzi didn't know was that Afiwa was no mere visitor. Her arrival in Sana was no accident, but the result of a quest born of pain and anger. Months earlier, in a neighboring village called Kovi, Afiwa had lost her best friend, Afiwa. The two women had grown up together, inseparable since childhood. Afiwa was a ray of sunshine, always laughing, full of energy, with dreams of traveling beyond Tadu. They shared everything, their hopes, fears, secrets. But one evening, Afiwa confided that she was seeing a man, a captivating stranger. "He's tall, handsome, with eyes that pierce you," she said, a dreamy smile on her lips. "He makes me feel like I'm the only one in the world." But she never revealed his name, adding only that he had something mysterious, something she couldn't explain. Weeks later, Afiwa was found dead in Kobe Square, her body pale, 2 bite marks on her neck. The village mourned, but no answers explained her death. Afiwa, devastated, refused to believe it was an accident. Her grief turned to suspicion. Who was this man? Why had Afiwa kept his identity secret? Why did no one know anything about him? Determined to find the truth, Afiwa began investigating, asking discreet questions, gathering scraps of information about similar deaths in other villages. Each time the same pattern. A young woman, seduced by a charismatic man, found dead with neck bites. Her search led her to Sana, where the deaths were multiplying. When she first saw Dodzi, her heart stopped. He matched Afiwa's description perfectly. Tall, handsome, with a charm that seemed to enchant every woman. But Afiwa wasn't naive. Her instincts screamed that he was the culprit. Yet she knew she couldn't accuse him without proof. Dodzi was too cunning, too beloved by the village. If she wanted to unmask him, she had to be patient, play his game, let him believe he was seducing her. Before leaving Kovi, Afiwa had consulted an oracle, Adzo, a woman revered for her ability to see beyond the physical world. In a hut filled with the smoke of sacred herbs, Afiwa told her everything. Afiwa's death, the bites, the mysterious man. Adzo closed her eyes, her fingers tracing a bone necklace. When she spoke, her voice was a whisper. A man walks among you, but he is not like others. He carries a serpent within him, a creature of seduction and death. With it, he lures women, charms them, then kills them. The serpent strikes, and its venom leaves no chance. Afiwa felt a chill run through her. A man-serpent. It seemed far-fetched, but the deaths were real. How do I stop him? She asked. Adzo opened her eyes, her gaze piercing. He is cunning, but his weapon can be turned against him. The serpent obeys a whistle, a sound he uses to control it. With this, you can take his power. She handed Afiwa a silver flute, small but heavy, engraved with ancient symbols. Play it when he calls the serpent, but beware. He will seduce you, make you lower your guard. Let him think he's won. It's your only chance. With the flute in hand and a plan in mind, Afiwa set out for Sana, determined to avenge Afua and end the murders. In Sana, Afiwa played her role perfectly. She let Dodzi approach, feigning indifference to stoke his interest. She observed his every move, noting his arrogance, his manipulation of women, his predator's confidence. But she stayed vigilant, the flute always hidden in her skirt's folds. Each time he tried to charm her, she responded just enough to keep him engaged, but never enough to give him the upper hand. Dodzi, frustrated by his repeated failures, changed tactics. He stopped pursuing her, feigning indifference. He ignored her at the market, avoided her gaze, and acted distant. This shift unsettled Afiwa. She'd expected him to persist, but his silence made her curious. Was he moving on to another target? Had he sensed her intentions? One evening, as he sharpened tools outside his hut, she approached. "You've been quiet lately," she said, her tone light but probing. Dodzi looked up, a smirk on his lips. "Maybe I'm tired of chasing," he replied, his gaze challenging. They exchanged a few words, and when he suggested a walk, Afiwa agreed, sensing the moment was near. During their walk, Dodzi seemed different, more reserved, almost vulnerable. He spoke of his childhood, the loneliness of a blacksmith, his dreams of a better future. Afiwa, playing along, relaxed, laughing at his stories, slightly lowering her guard. She knew he was testing her, but she wanted him to believe he was winning. In the days that followed, Dodzi intensified his efforts. He invited her on short walks, gave her small gifts, a rare flower, a carved bowl. Afiwa accepted, feigning growing interest. Her responses, once curt, grew warmer. She let him touch her lightly, a brush of the hand, a shared smile. Dodzi, convinced he had her, let his guard down. He no longer saw an adversary, but a conquest. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of fire, Dodzi invited Afiwa to his hut. "Just a quiet evening," he said, his smile disarming. Afiwa, sensing the moment had come, agreed. Her heart pounded, but she kept her composure. The flute, hidden against her skin, reminded her of her mission. Inside, the hut was as Afiwa had imagined. Dark, strange, heavy with an oppressive energy. The oil lamp cast shifting shadows and the air smelled of iron and burnt herbs. Dodzi offered her palm wine, served with exaggerated courtesy. They talked, and for the first time Afiwa let herself go, laughing at his jests, meeting his eyes. She saw the glint of triumph in his gaze. He thought he had won. He moved closer, his hand brushing hers. "Afiwa, you're different," he murmured, his voice like a caress. "Strong, unique. I've thought of you endlessly." She smiled, playing her part, but her pulse quickened. Then he asked the fateful question, "Do you know what separates a man's strength from a snake's?" Afiwa furrowed her brow, feigning confusion. Before she could answer, Dodzi hissed, a soft sound that grew sinister. The air seemed to thicken. In the shadows, a serpent emerged, its black scales glinting, its eyes fixed on her. Afiwa felt fear surge, but she acted fast. Reaching into her skirt, she grabbed the flute and blew. A piercing note filled the room, freezing the serpent mid-strike. Dodzi flinched, his eyes widening. "What?" he stammered. Afiwa blew again, and the serpent, as if enchanted, turned on him. It coiled around his body, its rings tightening. Dodzi struggled, his face twisted in fear. "Stop!" he cried, but Afiwa remained unmoved. "You're not the only one who knows snakes," she said, her voice cold. "You killed my friend Afiwa, and so many others. It's time to pay." The serpent under her control struck, sinking its fangs into Dodzi's neck. The venom acted instantly. He collapsed, his eyes glassy, as the serpent loosened and slithered into the shadows. Afiwa stood still, her heart heavy. She had succeeded, but the victory tasted bitter. She tucked the flute away, left the hut, and walked away, leaving Dodzi to his fate. The next morning, Sana awoke in chaos. Dodzi's body was found in the square, the serpent dead beside him, its head severed. A symbolic act by Afiwa to show the threat was over. The villagers, shocked, gathered, their whispers filling the air. Afiwa stepped forward, her face calm but resolute, and spoke. "I'm not just a visitor," she declared, her voice carrying over the crowd. "I came to Sana to avenge my friend Afiwa, killed by this man." Dodzi was not what he seemed. He used a serpent, an evil creature, to seduce and kill your daughters. He lived among you, hidden behind his charm, while you mourned your losses. She told them everything. Afiwa's death, her quest, the oracle, the flute. The villagers listened, stunned. Some wept, others shook their heads, unable to believe they'd been so blind. Women who had fallen for Dodzi's charm looked down, ashamed, but all felt relief. The terror was over. Kwajo the chief stepped forward. "You've saved Sana, Afiwa. We'll be forever grateful." He ordered Dodzi's body burned and his name never spoken, except as a warning. Years passed and Sana regained its peace. The fields bloomed again, laughter returned, and nights became joyful once more. But the story of Dodzi and his serpent was never forgotten. It became a legend, passed down through generations. Mothers told it to their daughters, warning them of men with too perfect charm, teaching them to trust their instincts. Afiwa didn't stay in Sana. After avenging Afiwa, she left, her mission complete. But her name became synonymous with courage and justice across Tadu. She was spoken of with reverence, a heroine who faced a monster and triumphed through cunning and resolve. Songs were composed in her honor, and her story inspired women to stand against injustice. As for Dodzi, he was relegated to oblivion, a symbol of deceit and evil hidden behind a charming facade. Sana thrived, but the lessons of the past remained etched in memory. Beauty can lie, and truth demands courage to be revealed.